Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel, and welcome to another Vlogmas video. I didn't know I'd make it this far. In today's video, I just wanted to go over some of the countries that I've been to that are the most expensive that I've ever been to and give you an idea of how expensive that is. Now, some of these you'd expect, and some of these you wouldn't expect, and some of them you might think, oh, that's not as expensive as I thought, or vice versa. So that's why I wanted to cover off the top 5 most expensive countries that I've been to. And I'll put them in ascending order. So the last one will be the most expensive. Number 5, New York. So New York is expensive. There's no way around it. It cost us like $30, I think, Australian, or was it American, just to get from the airport on the train. And that was an hour and a half. The worst accommodation I've ever had was in New York City. We stayed just near Times Square, which I know is central, and I wanted to pay a bit more so that I could be in a good location so I could save time and money in the mornings getting to all the attractions I wanted to see. Logical. I think it was called the Stanford. I'll name and shame. I'll tag and drag the Stanford in Koreatown. I paid $350 a night, which is absurd for my own budgets. I normally spend about $100-ish, for a private room. It was tiny. That's okay. I've been to Europe. Tiny rooms don't bother me. It was 2 single beds, even though I asked for a double. Single beds, they would not change it to a double, and I was there for 10 days with Daniel, so we were sleeping in these tiny single beds, and we were trying to stay in one together and we couldn't. And then we had a window that looked out at a brick wall, so there was no natural light, and then the bathroom was very vintage. It was nice. The bathroom was okay, and then there was construction everywhere. I don't mind. I've paid $350 for a canal view room in Venice with like beautiful wallpaper. Like that's my standard. I've paid that same much money for a private villa in Bali. Like the amount I could get for that elsewhere is so much nicer, and I got this dingy little crappy room with an uncomfortable bed that I couldn't even share with Daniel. This wasn't meant to be a video about that hotel, but I still remember it. The thing with New York is there is so much to do, costs money. So you want to go see a Broadway show, that's a few $100s, more if you're going to see Hamilton. Then you've got the Met, you've got MoMA, you've got all these different attractions, which is $20 to $30 every multiple times a day if you're doing them together. And then if you want to get around town, you got to catch the subway, which is not too expensive, but I wouldn't say it was cheap. Or taxis, which is very expensive. And the restaurants are very fancy, or it's a foodie's paradise, so the food is not particularly cheap. So I guess my main issue with New York is that it has too much that I want to spend my money on. It's not necessarily the extortion of it, but accommodation, transport, and everything does add up, and New York is one of the more expensive ones that I've been to. Number 4 is Copenhagen. Now, Copenhagen is more expensive than I thought, so that's why I put it on this list. I just went to Copenhagen recently. Copenhagen, the main part of the city's on like an island, and so if you want to be, and that's where all the tourist stuff is, that's where you want to be. Because it's on this island, you have to pay a certain amount to be on it, or be near it, so it's limited, the demand's high, supply is low, basic economics, prices are high. Not to mention that when we went, our hotel cancelled on us last minute, it caused a breakdown. I made a whole video about it, I'll put it down below. But yeah, Copenhagen, the food is pretty expensive. It's like $5 for a Danish, and the coffee is like $6, and then your accommodation, I think, we were supposed to have paid, I think, $300 to $350 a night for a private hostel dorm hotel thing. And then we ended up having to pay for this last minute room in a hostel because they cancelled on us last minute. So that was still not cheap. It was about $200, I think, for a shared hostel room with a bathroom. But I will say that was last minute, and that was an emergency situation, so I can't put them down too much for that one. But then you've got to pay to go into there's the palace you can go into, and that's $36. You can pay to go into different museums, that's more money. Copenhagen, I will say the good thing with Copenhagen is it is very walkable. You don't need transport as much, so that saves a little bit of money there. So number 3 is Norway. Norway was so expensive, but I loved it so much, so I'm very conflicted. Norway, we actually managed to get pretty good accommodation for a price, but I think we just got a good deal on that stuff. In Oslo we managed to stay at the Best Western of all places, but it was fairly cheap and it was in a good location, which was fine. I think that was like maybe $250 a night. See, this is already, like, I say that like it's cheap, it's not. That's expensive. It was a good hotel in a good location, but it was $250 a night when we, like I said, $100 a night is normally my bracket. So that was $250 a night, and then we stayed at Odda, which is like a remote village area, and that was quite cheap. That was like $120, and that was the most beautiful Airbnb we've ever been in. But I will say we had to get a bus from Odda up to the start of the Trolltunga hike. That bus cost $90. $90 for a bus, for a 20-minute bus. 20 minutes, $90. And then in Bergen I stayed in another Airbnb for about $200 again. So as you can see, it is not cheap. The food is very expensive. We were trying to do grocery shopping and just buying bits as cheap as we could. And their budget grocery store, which is where we went, was the same price as the most expensive grocery store in Australia, to put it in perspective. So Norway, I was talking to one of my friends about this and he summed it up perfectly. Norway, you pay a stupid amount of money for everything, but it's the best quality you could ever get. So you're paying a lot, but you're getting really good quality as well, which is okay. Ideally, I'd like not to pay that much, but at least you're not getting ripped off and you're getting quality food, drink, accommodation. The people are lovely. The scenery is amazing. I have to go back to Norway. I have to. Number 2 is Switzerland, which I'm sure comes up on everyone's list. I've been to Switzerland once. I would love to go back. It's 2015, so I was a lot younger. I was 21, 22. So we were doing it, trying to do it as cheaply as possible. And I stayed in an Ibis hotel, and it was $170 a night, which hindsight compared to the others, not too bad. However, this room was so tiny that the bed took up the entire floor space, and it did have a bathroom, but the sink, there was no walls around the bathroom essentially. So you got in the shower in the room, and then you got out of the shower and you were in the room, and the sink was right there next to the bed. So there was no separation. And I think the toilet was in like a water closet, but it was hilariously tiny. We didn't do a lot of museums or anything just because we simply couldn't afford it, but we were in Lucerne, which is a beautiful town just to walk around in. The food was so expensive that we didn't eat at all. So what we did was Daniel went down to the lobby of the hotel, and at the front of the lobby they often have a lot of coupons for local businesses, and so he went there and was looking at all the 2-for-1, 20% off, 40% off, and so I think we ate kebabs because we were able to get one free with a coupon. I ate Nutella out of a jar that I bought from Germany, so I was eating Nutella just on a spoon because that was to get me through. To put in perspective, a Big Mac burger at McDonald's is $40. So you can imagine how much like real food is. It was not even on the cards for us to buy at that point, so we were just like making it do, trying to be as cheap as possible. However, it's given me a lot of fond memories, and it was still funny to look back on, and at the time to be like, we're eating because this is a coupon, not because, so I didn't get to have any like sweet Swiss cheese or like chocolate, because we were just trying to survive basically. But 100% would do it again. Switzerland's beautiful, and maybe it might be better when I'm older with more money, but you can do it cheap and young. That's what my lesson is here. The number 1 most expensive place I've ever been, Iceland. I've just been to Iceland and oh my god, so expensive. Unbelievably, comically expensive. So I was trying to plan my holiday there. We knew we were going to do the ring road, and so we needed a car. So that was going to be $200 a day. $200 a day for a car. And we're like, okay, fine, that's whatever. And then we're like, okay, we need accommodation. Shared hostel, because there's not many around Iceland. Supply is low and demand is high. There are hostels outside of Reykjavik for $400 a night for a shared dorm. And I was like, no, I cannot. Even if I won the lottery, I could not justify this money. Because it's not even nice. They were so ugly and so basic. Even the private rooms were like from the 90s with like the apricot. I could not justify it. The way we managed to do it was that we went and hired a camper van with happy campers that had a fold out bed in the back, and it had a kitchen built into it, like a little stove and sink and a fridge. So we did that, and that cost us, I think that only cost us $300 a day, which is still absurd, but considering a basic car was going to be $200, it didn't cost that much more. And that came with free Wi-Fi, so we were able to use that as the GPS. And then we got into Reykjavik and we went to the Bonus store. The name is the one with the pig. And that is the cheapest supermarket in Iceland to buy your shopping. And that is the cheapest supermarket in Iceland is the same as the most expensive in Sydney. And we were paying like, it's like $5 for like a bit of milk. Like, it's absurd. We went in and we bought frozen vegetables. We bought a soy sauce dressing thing. And we bought some rice. And then I had already brought from home some protein powder and some oats. And so we lived on porridge with protein powder, and we lived on stir-fried vegetables and rice for an entire week that we cooked in our own little van. So, and I think that whole thing cost like maybe like $20 a day for that food. And it was not particularly good. It was very plain. The good thing was that it was hot food because it was quite cold in Iceland, so you were able to like eat a bowl of porridge in the freezing cold, and it was really nice. I'm really happy with how we've done Iceland. I honestly think we did it as cheap as we could, and it was still not that cheap. Daniel likes to collect t-shirts everywhere we go. The t-shirts there were $45 to $50 for like a basic tourist t-shirt, not a fancy like Ralph Lauren something Gucci. It was like a basic no-name Iceland t-shirt was $50. And you're like, how? We paid $50 for crepes at the end because I think we were just so over the beans and rice that by the time we had our last day in Reykjavik before heading to the airport, and there was like this place that did vegan crepes, so we went and we had some vegan crepes and splurged for $25 a crepe, which, well, after being in Iceland for a week, you become desensitized and you're like, that's reasonable, I'm hungry, I want a crepe. Nah. Looking back now, I'm like, damn, that was $25 for a crepe, that's crazy. That's Iceland. The good thing with Iceland is once you're there and you get what I've just said sorted, there's no entrance fees to anything, and there's no, unless you're paying for like Blue Lagoon or like activities like glacier hiking, all the nature is free, so that makes it a lot easier. And campsites aren't too expensive, so we had to park our car at campsites, and they were about $10 a night to $20 depending, which is expensive considering we're already paying $300 for a car, but at this point I was just happy with anything. So there you have it. That is my list of the top 5 most expensive countries that I've visited and how I try to do them cheaper. Tell me in the comments below if there's another country that's super expensive that you've been to that I haven't, and I'll attempt to go on the cheap, because I'm always trying to be cheap. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and remember to hit subscribe so I can see you tomorrow for another Vlogmas video. Bye.